Okay. Yeah, it's been a very fun day so far. I've had a reasonable number of winners here going. So yeah, can't complain. I just posted this in the pit a minute ago. So that's my day to date. So, ooh, look at this. Where are we now? Back down here. Interesting spot. Big sell off down to this spot. Hmm. Come on in, everybody. I have been scalping a lot, as you can see. Might be about to take another trade here. I'm watching this low. Maybe nibble into this again, but let's see. Maybe we'll do it in ES this time. ES has liquidity all the way down there, so that's no good. What's happening over here? Maybe right there. How much lower did we go? We went a lot lower, so let's let this play out a little bit. This could fell off into the close, particularly on a Monday. Wouldn't shock me at all. So let's sit on our hands for a little while and watch the lay of the land, and we'll talk about the context. Heat map is mixed. Tech is mixed. The SPOOs are mixed. The Russell is weak today. So much for rotating to small caps. So that's kind of the story in a nutshell. We just had a pretty good push down that I played a few times both ways. Now I'm just watching 0 0 in motion here. It's in play, and there's a lot of potential both ways. The value area is way up here, but will probably come down as the volume builds down here. So let's keep an eye on this. What's a significant difference from today's performance to last week's that you noticed? I didn't know, no difference. I'm doing the same thing I always do, David. I am trading a little more aggressively today, but there was good opportunities. So no difference. The conditions, as far as I can see, look pretty similar. Lots of good opportunities. We have a decent range, 53 points in ES, 265, 264 in NQ. We have been to extremes. We're not quite there right now. We're kind of on value again. Although value is coming down, it's worth noting. Look at the SDs here. They were expanding outward, and now they're kind of flat and compressing. So let's see how far down this can push. That's kind of what I'm watching right now. The tick's been pretty extreme to the downside in the last half an hour, but it's flat right now. Advanced decline opened strong and has sold off, which is again kind of a sign of a weak market when that happens. Remember, we've got a ton of earnings coming in the next few days. And we also have a bunch of economic stuff, FOMC and NFP, as we discussed in the IDEs this morning. So I think a prudent plan for a Monday here is to give it a little bit of time to shake out. I've been nibbling along in NQ. I wouldn't necessarily do that here, but I've been doing that on the way down on some good absorption. Watching ES for some good kind of trades around the quarter numbers and the liquidity, and maybe a little lower down that could be in play here. Earlier, there was a nice push into the mid 90s that was into liquidity, kind of watching to see if it can do that again, maybe right into here. That's like 97.5 is the quarter number. There's liquidity in front of it quite a bit. So that's an interesting thought. I'm going to go ahead and put some orders down there and see what happens. And see what happens when we get down there. So anyway, very interesting Monday. Decent volume, decent range, decent movement. We are still inside the apex that I mentioned this morning at IDES. We explored to the upside of it, and we are still inside it with a poor week high for this session and a poor week low from a overnight below us a couple of days ago. So again, you can kind of make an argument that we can go either way. And that's why I'm focused pretty much on the short-term price action. And I'm watching the liquidity here in ES. If we can trade down into where I have these orders, maybe we can nibble along there. The liquidity's been pretty stable. Maybe we can trade down to it. Again, I've been playing NQ, but right now I'm not real interested here. It's extended a little too far down to be scalping long anymore, and it could have more downside potential, but it's bouncing. So again, let's let the range establish. So with respect to our closing setup, we're not at extremes, although lots of potential to get there with this big burst of selling. I wouldn't be surprised if we test them. It's noteworthy that we're right at the overnight low in ES. We're just above it, and we've obviously been lower than that, but that's been in play. You can see right here on the 30-minute rotations. So I'm kind of watching that also for an inflection point that might get busy. YM is below its overnight. NQ is in the same kind of situation as ES. It's right on the overnight, and it's been below it and traded up from it. So the overnight low. So I'm going to see if I can nibble along here in ES. Meanwhile, NQ is pushing down again. So I don't want to try to nibble it, but I have been, just to be clear. That's what I was playing. And now I'm being a little bit more cautious. And I'm also trying to do a little bit of an ES trade here if we get one. So let's see if we can get a fill down here anywhere near this liquidity. Maybe even right here on 0.0. Feels like it wants to go lower than that, though, if you look at the price action here. So maybe we'll get a fill a little lower down here, right in there. I'm going to see if I can buy this 97.5 to 98.5 area. If we push down there, let's see. But I don't want to be too aggressive because we've been a lot lower, like I said, but there's good liquidity down here. See if we can trade it and find some buyers. Again, I've been bouncing in NQ a lot, but it needs to go lower for me to do that some more. I was playing 0.0 and I was playing the bottom of value up here earlier. And I just showed you guys that I just posted those trades. But now I'm a little more cautious there, and I want to see if ES rotates into this liquidity and what happens here. Remember, liquidity is important, and also, does it trade or not? And then what happens after it trades? So see, it moved down, most of it. So now this isn't really a high liquidity area so much anymore. Scoot this down a little bit, maybe get on it right there. Again, I'm just kind of... I want to get in line there because, with ES, you got to get in line if you want to catch an inflection point. So that's kind of the theme of today. I'm taking you guys up a notch from just the basics of the setups to some more detail about how they work. And we've done a lot of NQ scalps. As I said, I just posted a whole boatload of them that I've done today. But here those are again. So most of most of these are NQ trades. In fact, almost all of them are. In fact, all of them are. I thought I had done an ES. So I'm trying to play an ES a little bit, but I want to show you guys today a little bit about how the tactics have to be different. Like I'm in line down here because if this becomes an inflection point, I can't just do what I do in NQ and hit the bid or hit the market. It's too hard to get a fill in ES at a good spot. That's why the liquidity kind of lines up like that. So it's important to try to get in line, but you don't want to just overcommit. And also, if it's no longer a good spot, you want to get out of line. So right now I'm going to leave these here because that is a good spot. If we rotate down to it again, then I will be in a better spot in line. You could argue that maybe we're going to test 0.0 again, but that feels like a sucker trade to me. Although we are at the bottom of value, value is probably going to move down here a little bit because we did a bunch of volume. So the value area low will probably move down as it recalculates. So I'm very interested in being very careful here and maybe getting along down there. And again, if NQ can really get moving down again, then it could get interesting at the extremes. So let's see what we get here. Again, it's Monday. I've already had a really good day. Don't want to give any of it back, and I want to see if I can add to it a little bit here. By the way, I have some updates on I'm in an Apex. I'm in two different Apex accounts right now. And I've been pushing it really hard with them, even at the open, and their data feels much better now. So that's apparently whatever they were doing, updating last weekend, improved their data flow. I did not see the constant lag at all. And so I bought two of their 50s I'm in right now, and one of them I'm about to pass. I bought it Friday, and then I bought another one just now, and that one's up about $500. So I'm trading them pretty aggressively when I'm seeing a trade. I want to kind of work through their system and see how they're doing with paying out and whatnot again. I've done that with them a bunch of times in the past, but not recently because I wasn't happy with their data. Lee posted something about the 1-day withdrawal at one of the other evaluators too, and they paid him. So that was worth keeping an eye on if you're looking for evaluators to trade with. So again, tactics today is what we're going to talk about. And at the moment, there's no trade I want to take here. So there's no tactics to show you, but I like a push down to the 97.5 kind of liquidity quarter number area here in ES, although we're way above it now. So that didn't quite happen. It got close to me. It got in the 98 area and almost took that trade, but this absorption here was on both sides of the tape. It wasn't just on the bid. So I'm not so sure we aren't done going down. As I said at the beginning, the internals are very mixed today. You know, tech is mixed. We have a lot of internals. Mickey D's up because of internals. We have earnings. That was this morning. There's a bunch coming after the close. That's going to be going on real busy this week and more and next week as well. So, and as we talked about earlier, there's all these economic numbers, so it's going to be busy, and you have to be nimble. Let's see. Do I like the range that's developing in ES right now? I kind of do. I like it better. Yeah, you can argue down here, right? Like right there wasn't a bad spot a minute ago. That's like right below 0.0, and the liquidity's still there. But it feels like we could get a push down, and that would be a better opportunity. I'm going to wait till we clear the top of the hour and go into the last two periods, and then we'll get a little more aggressive on the current range. I'm kind of hoping it will try to get a little more extreme. There was some really aggressive selling a few minutes ago. Look at here on my NQ plot, and I'm just curious if that doesn't maybe take another shot at the lows. That's kind of why I'm hanging back. On Mondays, you know, this is the second Monday we've done this class. And last Monday we were just getting started. I was introducing what I do, and I didn't really get a chance to emphasize that Mondays I tend to be a little more cautious at the close, particularly on a day like this that's kind of been two directional. Let's see. Please explain the absorption around 99.5 being on the bid and the ask. Yeah, if you look at this high volume circle here, normally at the low, you want to see trading only on the bid. That indicates buyers are holding, and it was split there. There was 800 contracts and it was 400 by 400. So that was not a real clear buyers stepped up and held the low. It was some churning, and that's not as decisive as if that was 800 on the bid. That would be much more decisive as a low. And, likewise going the other way in the other direction. So at the lows, you want to see high volume nodes that are primarily trading on the bid, and then it doesn't go lower. That's what you're looking for. And then going the other way, you want to see it trading on the ask and not going higher. And, that's a sign that that price level is holding, at least for the moment. Okay, it's coming down here again. So I put one of these front run orders at right on, let's push it up to 0, 0, but I think that might be too early. Ooh, somebody front ran me and I got a shitty place in line. I would have had a really good spot in line if I'd done that a second earlier. So these guys are moving around though. This block of 3 is moving around. So I'm going to leave those orders down there. I'm going to see if I can get a better spot in line right here and see if we can catch a trade. NQ's trading right on 0, 0 again. And, to buy that, I want to trade that, but I want it to be lower. I've been trading that pretty aggressively all day, and it just feels like it needs to go lower over there. I'm going to bring these back to 1 minute and zoom in on the wicks. You want to see wicks on your extremes, and right now we don't have them. We're just kind of blocks of volume, so we're probably going lower here. Let's see if these fill. Okay, that one filled, so we got one of those, and that's kind of working right away, so that's cool. Let's get under it or take profit. Now we have 2. Perfect. Let's get one off and try to get under the other one. There we go. Perfect. Okay. If I can protect this a little better. There we go. There's a little move back up to the value area. So we caught 4 ticks there on that second one. So again, that spot was in play. I like the spot further down better, but that spot was in play. And we caught some points there, some ticks. So that was a good example of the tactics in ES have to be about ticks. And if you're playing in NQ, you got to play for points. So it's just different tactics. So let's see. Let's try. See, this is trading on the ask, which it shouldn't be doing. These should be on the bid. That's what I meant. That's on the wrong side of the trade. So let's see if it comes down into liquidity, if we can get a better fill below here. There we go. Okay, a little bit more right there. Okay, so see, you can get ticks instantly, but you want to shoot for, 5, 10 points if you're playing NQ. Otherwise, it's not worth it. The tick value is too small. So that was just an example of that. I immediately go for more, even on the first instrument or two, or the first contract or two. And again, really have to be nimble doing this in NQ, because if it decides to take this low out, it's got a lot lower to go, and it's been coming down in big aggressive bursts. So meanwhile, ES is holding that area that we just traded. So watch the liquidity here in NQ. Let's see if it can get more aggressive into down here on the bid side. So I'm going to load up some orders into this liquidity, but if it moves out of the way, I'm probably going to cancel some of them, because that's too aggressive for this big air pocket. Here it goes. There's the big sweeps down. See, that's what I'm talking about. Those will be friendly if they come down and fill me and we don't go much farther. That's the premise I'm operating on right now. Then those are friendly sweeps. Let's see if we can get a fill down here. I just took one in the market because it was stalling. Now we've got a couple more. Okay, let's throw some orders up and try to play. Again, this is a tricky spot in NQ. Don't be too aggressive. And also watch me trade. Don't just follow what I'm doing on your computer trading it. Watch the tactics I'm using and where I'm filling. Like I just took the first one off here. I'm going to try to get another one off so it gets above me and I can protect those last 2. Otherwise, this is too tricky a spot to not. There we go, like that. I want to get under it as fast as I can. And so there you go. And then you catch a runner, but you're protecting your profit and you're not taking more risk. See how different that is from what I was just doing in ES, where I was just going for ticks. Here I'm going for 5 or 10 points at a time. And remember, this is crunch 2 to 1. This isn't. This is tick by tick over here. It has to be in ES. But this one, see, I'm going every half a point instead of every quarter of a point. So the display. So it's crunched together a little more, which shows me the spots the liquidity is at more clearly. If you don't crunch it some amount, I like 2 to 1 on my dome. If you don't crunch it at least that much, it's just too hard to read it. It spreads out too much. So here we go. Let's see if we can get a fill here again. Yeah, it's right there. One more big block of selling, and we should be able to get some more long on below it here. But so far I did not fill there. So this is definitely the range. We have a good range. This is the NQ, trade the range. Where does it struggle trade that I've talked about? This is the third of the setups. You can do this in NQ as long as you're mindful of the current catastrophic risk, which right now is if this liquidity either jumps out of the way or we trade through it. We got a long way down here we could go, and it's not really clear at all. Look at this. This was all trading on the ask, not the bid. So it wasn't really clearly a low anywhere on the way down there. So, but again, it's good scalping in here because this range is holding, and the range that I'm talking about is basically what the LRCs are saying. It's the high 80s, mid 80s up to 10, 12, call it 20, the high side. So but it's really holding more like 12, 15. So that's a pretty good tradable range. That's a nice, 15, 20 points, even if you're late getting into the range. So see if we get a fill here on this. This is at 94. And then I've got a few more down here in the 80s. Like I said, that's the bottom of the current range. That could change. It could blow right through there, but that's why I'm nibbling there. Okay, let's see if this fills. That didn't fill. Look at that. Okay, so I just took another one, or tried to. I couldn't get filled on that 94 order. It's working right away. That's what you want to see. So again, it's a good spot to play. The value area is pretty far up, but if I can scalp quick, $10, $20 one lots, that's a good thing to be doing with micros. Remember, we're doing 10 micros and a close. That's what I'm showing you right now. Let's see if we can scale this a little bit more here, get a little bit bigger there. Meanwhile, the ES trade isn't setting up. It's still holding right on zero and hasn't traded down to where I've been in line for a long time. And I can't get another one yet over here. So let's scoot that target up. Maybe catch a little bigger bounce than that. Okay, that one just filled. Now we can put our first one there and then maybe get our runner. So liquidity is scooting down a little bit. So let's scoot down with it. There we go. There's our first one. Protect it. Maybe get our runner. If we don't, we get a quick $10, $20. Again, with a couple of micros, this is my point about the tactics today. Look at this. I've only used more than 10. There's 10, there's 12, there's 11, there's 17, there's 14. That's it. All the rest of the time, this is 2, 3, 5, and this is $1,200 so far here. So am I making my point? I hope so. If you don't understand, ask questions, because this should be a really clear point. Okay. Is that also represented by the delta? Those big giant deltas, not necessarily. Those could be several different things at any one price. You want to see a clump of them like this. That represents solid buying. A clump of bid side trading right there. That's what I mean. Just one level with a delta may or may not mean that. Sometimes that can be something completely different. Maybe some other time frame trader or somebody hedging was the big delta. It's worth being aware of those, but I don't scalp price action because of big deltas. I scalp price action because of price action. And that's an important point. By the way, Lee's considering doing a closing structural class. We were talking about it a few minutes ago. He's going to come to one of our sessions this week and preview that. So I'll try to let you know when it's going to happen, but he's going to preview another premium class on the close that he's thinking about doing. So, which I think you guys will be interested in. All right, so lots of good stuff here. But again, got to be patient and let it come to us. I'm still waiting for another ES trade to set up. There could be one right at the bottom of value now, like right there. The liquidity's right there. But again, I like that much better further down, like right here and here. That's just a risky spot to try that, even though it could hold. So that's the ideas I have for ES right now. But meanwhile, NQ has given us some really good scalps. So let's keep an eye on that and see if it sets up again. I'd really like to see NQ push the lows a little harder. So instead of buying the high 80s like I've been doing, low 90s, I'd like to see it get into the 50, 60 area. Then we could maybe get a little more aggressive. But as I said, the day's paying off really nicely, so I'm not complaining. You know, this is a really good example with the results I just showed you guys and these tactics. This is what this whole class is about. You don't need a lot of micros to pull $1,000 days off. You know, 5 is a decent number if you're at the right spot. And you can scale a little harder sometimes. You get a little offsides. You can balance a little bit more, but you don't need to use more than that. That was the entire premise for this class, and that's why I originally decided to do this class, because I was showing this to somebody and that isn't in TRG, and they said that would make a really good class, and I was like, you're right, it would. So, you know, don't overscale this. You can do it with 10 or less. Like right now, we've got 5 orders over here in ES if it gets down there, and that's more than enough to play that area if it trades down there. See what I mean about these high volume nodes? They're coming up both sides again. At the high up here, if this was getting absorbed, you'd want to see them be more blue than blue and red, meaning it's trading on both sides of the tape. So that's what I was talking about earlier, lower down. At the low, you want to see it red. At the high, you want to see it blue if you're looking for reversals. So again, today's focus is tactics. Think in points for NQ or MNQ. Think in ticks for ES. You may get more than that, but that has to be what you're looking for if you're scalping. Particularly in ES, you know, the liquidity is your enemy and your friend. If you're not in line, you can be at exactly the right spot and not get filled entering or exiting, and that's really frustrating. NQ gives you plenty of opportunities to jump in and out, even if you're slightly off sides. But you know, the movement makes that profitable. You just have to be careful not to get too strong an opinion at any one spot. Right now, we're seeing sellers absorbing buyers here at the value area low in NQ, which is 25-ish. So let's see if that selling right there holds, and because that's as far as the buyers could push it. And now it's getting decent absorption. See, we're trading blue here more. So let's see if that spot holds. That's right on SD -1. So it's right at the bottom of kind of current value and the bottom of the value area, which, as I said, those often line up, but they don't have to be. You know, that's generally the area that one would consider to be value, quote unquote. And the value area is a percentage of the volume on the volume profile, not an SD of the VWAP like -1 is. See, we just got a really good sweep there. That's what I was talking about, right at the top of the hour. That would have been an interesting one to nibble, but I didn't get filled over here, even on the 0-0 spot. So let's keep an eye. Yeah, now we've got a pretty good little short squeeze going. That was a short squeeze, by the way, if you didn't recognize it. It swept down, found buyers, and then immediately they just jumped on the bid and just trapped everybody who got stopped out down there off sides. You see that a lot this time of day. Okay, so let's see. Now we're kind of in no man's land here. We're back at 20, the bottom of value. I wouldn't short that. It's got way too much momentum right now. A little short squeeze going in NQ. But let's see again if it can hold this spot. I'm not going to trade it this time. I just want to watch it. See, now we're blowing the range up. We're stretching the range out in all three. So you don't want to be fading that. You want to be going with that. if you can. And this is a little late to start going with it, but it's got a pretty good little bid going here. This is a little baby short squeeze. We just had off of 5 up to 8. See how strong and quick that was? And there's a relentless bid still, but it's finding sellers now. It wasn't on the, oh, there we go, sweeping up again. That's another short squeeze. Watch, see how they just push the bid, and these guys just jump out of the way on the other side until they decide they want to play. So this could go away. It's a little too late to join it, but let's just watch it. I'm going to cancel these orders down here. Yeah, see, NQ took out that 20 spot and it's now above 35. So again, we have a little short squeeze going. Look at the ticks. NQ tick is 22. The broader market's almost 500. So that's all pretty strong. That's a little baby short squeeze in the equities and the futures. Again, learning to recognize those is the first important thing. You can scalp them later once you're really good at spotting them, because the problem with trading short squeezes is they go as long as they go and then they just stop because it's a squeeze. So, and the sellers sometimes reassert themselves after a short squeeze, particularly if one that runs stops up at a ledge or or the edge of a range. And sometimes that reasserting can be really, really aggressive too, and we can push right back down hard. So the setups that are the easier ones to trade at the close are the ranges and the extremes. The short squeezes are good to learn how to see, and then if you can see an opportune place to play them, then you can kind of combine the other two with short squeezes. That's kind of the methodology that you want to be thinking about. And again, today we're going to focus on tactics for these setups. So that's why we're talking about points over here in NQ, MNQ. We're talking about ticks in ES. We're talking about where are the quarter numbers and where's the liquidity in ES and MES. We're talking about, are we at any sort of extreme or artifact or inflection point or definable range in NQ? Like we've got a really clear low right now that got bought nicely down there. And then, I wouldn't call that a good high yet. Still got more work to do up there. So let's see how far this range spreads out. See, it's spreading out to the upside. It was nice and horizontal before, so that's because of the short squeezing that's going on. That's why it's doing that. You can see we're up at the extreme here and we're still short squeezing. See the bid? Just keeps resetting, and these guys start to sell and then they say net and they get out of the way and we squirt up again. And now there's some good absorption here, but there it is again. See, you got to get used to seeing that and where it's happening first. And then when you're good at that and you can maybe play it in sim, then that's worth trying in a PA or in an eval or in cash. But it takes a while to learn how to see that, and once you do, it'll be like, whoa, how come I didn't see that before? It's so obvious once you're used to it. And but it's become, like clockwork. Every day at the close we get that behavior. That's why I decided to do this class. Again, the behavior at the close has been so nicely predictable. Extremes are great. Value is great. If we depart from value aggressively, that's great. For ranges, it's just it's everything that's going to happen is almost always baked in by now. So, the pure action around the artifacts is really, the right word is pure. The action around the artifacts is really pure. That's what I'm trying to say. It's just really clear. I'm going to put these on 5 minutes so we can really see the boundaries of the range here. And that'll give us a really clear idea what's going on. We can always zoom in on the wicks if we want to, which is what I zoomed in on a minute ago. But see, we're right back on value here in ES. We're back into the value area, but below value in NQ, which has been quite volatile down here, which is why it's been so tradable. So watch again, watch for the bottom of the range to hold, watch for the liquidity to not move down when it comes down to it or not move up when it comes up to it. That's how you start seeing the range boundaries in NQ. The liquidity will stop moving and start absorbing. Like it's trying right here again between 40 and 50. Let's see if that holds as the top of the range. See, it's blue here, trying to push up, but it's getting absorbed, still getting absorbed, still getting absorbed, still getting absorbed. Watch for a short squeeze over here. That could push this up too. So far, good absorption there around the 10 quarter number as well, but value is quite a ways higher up there. So yeah, it's going to try to blow this again. And there it goes. Another little short squeeze. And now we're above 10 and we're heading toward 12 and a half. So this has been a pretty consistent short squeeze, actually. We've come pretty far. You can see the slope of the liquidity here in ES. See how the white slopes like that? But look at NQ. It's moving around. It's not sloping cleanly like it is in ES. That's why I've been trying to get a trade on in ES around the liquidity and around a quarter number, because that's got a lot better potential of riding the short squeeze farther. NQ is just too erratic to do that right now. So again, I'm going to kind of core dump details about the tactics. That's what we're doing today. That's what you're hearing me do. If you have any questions, let me have them. If you want clarification on any of these ideas, let me have those. I'm going to go back to wick monitoring here at 1 minute on these and zoom in, kind of go back and forth. I'm doing on my other screen, I have both. So, but this way you can see the energy minute by minute, and there's value to that. That can kind of help you see the short squeezes and join them. So gives you a little idea. Watch for the wicks at the low, just, to get really sharp like that. That's the places you want to buy, on those wicks that get bought. So that's why zooming in like that can be useful. So anyway, I pre-announced a little bit. Lee's looking at doing a structural closing class. He's going to come and preview that to you guys sometime this week in our class. It will be similar to what we did before, except it will be based on statistics for structure, and it'll be a low cost add-on for TRG like this one was. So watch for that announcement. And we're back at value low here. Let's see if this area trades. That's the spot that I said had a good little V bottom here, right around 0. So that would be a little bit of an overshoot of that. That would be an interesting spot to nibble long. Also, boy, value is all the way down here now. So that's not a bad spot to get in line again, just for fun. Ticks are negative, but not as negative as they were a while ago. And advanced decline is flattened out at the low. Again, this behavior of opening strong and the advanced decline getting worse all day, that's the sign of a market that's selling off. That's not the sign of a market that has fresh money flowing into it. So we're still seeing the equities under pressure here, but we're holding 5,500 for the moment. That's my contextual take on what's happening. For those of you playing our home game, I used to have a sideline as a radio guy, and my sister was a professional radio person. So sometimes I'll go into my radio voice, you'll hear it. You kind of get practiced at being real radio if you've ever done that professional announcing of any kind. It's very different than teaching, which is more conversational. When you're announcing, you've got to shock and tease and get people to stay all hour. And so tend to do stuff that facilitates that. I'm trading and I'm not wearing any clothes. I'll discuss that in our next segment at the bottom of the hour. But first, the news. Yeah, again, if you're just coming in, Mondays, you should be relatively cautious around the close, particularly if you're already having a good day like I have been having here. So, the Ides of Monday, Mondays always surprise you in weird ways. And the whole idea of the Ides of Monday came from one day after like 30 years of trading, I started looking at my performance by day. And Mondays were horrendous by comparison with any other day of the week. I mean, I had some good Mondays, but in general, my performance on Mondays was not very good, relatively. And, so um, I started keeping an eye on that. And for a while, I didn't trade on Mondays at all. That was my kind of rookie solution. And that didn't make sense because there were some really good trades sometimes on Monday, particularly if you were patient at the open. So I kind of went back and looked at it and realized it's just a riskier environment. So the right answer isn't not to do it. The right answer is to be using appropriate risk management on Mondays. And one component of that I realized again was analyzing some more data was that most of the mistakes I made on Mondays were, you ready for it? At the open or the close. The rest of the day I did pretty good. And today's, I traded the open pretty aggressively, but I've been trading on and off all day and it's been really productive. As I was saying, no more than a 10 micros, in most cases, far less than that. And it's, $1,400 day now. And um, so the moral here, the lesson, one of the lessons that's important is once you become kind of a consistently profitable trader, then it's about improvement. And there's some really good metrics in Jigsaw, by the way, for that. It gives you all kinds of metrics. In fact, hang on a second. Let me pause this. I think I can show you mine. Um, at the bottom and top of the liquidity range is the number, the sum of each. Which number are you talking about? You're talking about like I'm not sure what number you're asking me about. There's these numbers in here. That's the traded volume. So, for example, down here, these are the traded volume the last time it was down there. And you're talking about this number over here, that little number? Yeah, that's a total. I have it grayed out because I don't pay any attention to it. But that's one of the settings in Jigsaw. You can go on to the amount that's at the bid or the ask, and and where's S step? There it is. You can highlight a total. The total font color right now I've got it gray, but I could make it black and then you'd see it. Let's see, that's the ask depth. Where's the bid depth? Oh, yeah. See, now you see it there. So that's just the total of the number of levels I'm running, but it's really not relevant. So, with some instruments, it can be relevant. That trade really thick and don't move around a lot. But that's really the only place I found it to be valuable. I find it distracting otherwise. And comparing the amount on the bid or the ask doesn't really tell you anything because it's across so many levels, if that makes any sense to you. So anyway, let me put it back at grayed out so it doesn't distract me. Bid depth, ask depth. Okay. Oops. All right. So, hold on a second. I'm going to pause the share for a minute here. And let's see if I can show you this. Uh, Let's, uh, there we go. Okay, now I think I can show you what I want to show you. Okay, so this is an example of, let's see. Yeah, like bonds, exactly. This is an example of something called Profit Seeker in Jigsaw Journalytics, which comes with the live version of Day Trader. And you can see it will calculate by like time of day and by instrument and by, any metric, you could pretty much give it. And that's one of the ways I track stuff um, like the Ides of Monday. So anyway, I thought I'd show you that real fast. Let's go back to what's going on in the market. And there we go. Okay, let's see. Still kind of in no man's land on ES here. We're near value area lows way down here. Liquidity's between here and there. Yeah, I don't like that very much, and I don't like NQ at 20. Needs to be lower or higher in both cases. So let's go back to keeping our hands warm and see if anything else might develop here. Well, we might have something starting in NQ. Let's see what it's doing right here. Again, the bottom down here around zero is still well defined, but the top isn't. We kind of absorbed 50, but now we're only at 30 and we're kind of bubbling around. So I just don't like that as a range. It kind of tried to hold the top and did, but sloppy. And see how the 5 minute is almost as big as the 30-minute LRC? That's what price discovery looks like. And so this is just kind of randomly exploring around. And the range is when the 5 minute range and the 30-minute range are the same, that's just asking to get off sides. It's you want to see a tight range. I've talked about this many times, a tight range at the edge of a range that is big enough to play, but not so big that it makes randomness across a lot of prices likely. And that's what we have right now. The range is spreading out and it's just too random here. Lower down is worth playing, higher up might be worth playing, but the short squeezes have kind of led that as I wouldn't want to short it. If I can find a place to get long, maybe, but for a lot further up, it gets interesting, particularly in ES at the top of value up there. That got absorbed really nicely up here. See that blue right at the value area high? There's a lot of trading on the blue, in other words, on the ask, and that's really good absorption and just a little bit of trading on the other side of the tape. So that's why I like that spot so much better. We might have the range trade setting up here in ES. It's trying to. I mean, the really tight range, scalpable with size one. Let's see if it can stay in this area long enough that maybe we can play the kind of 4.25 or down to maybe 2.5 area, and then the other way we'll just go long. We won't go short. Let's see if that that holds that area. Again, that's kind of the bottom of this range right now, around 4. But it's a better idea down here where it's tested successfully at 0. So that's where you really want to be aggressive if you get an opportunity. That third one down. God, could we join a short squeeze here at 10? Maybe. Let's try. Okay, got one at 9.5. And there it goes. There's 1075. And we're out. That was how you trade a short squeeze. Go back and watch that. That was perfect. You could see it coming right there. I got long. I got lucky that I got filled. My second order there didn't fill, and that worked. Quick 6 ticks. And again, that works perfectly with 10 minis if you want the size. There's plenty of liquidity there to trade that with 10 or 20 minis if your account size justifies it. But you got to be able to manage the risk of it going against you. That's why this class is about 10 micros, and you can make money just with 1 or 2 at a time like that. And those winners really add up. I mean, look at me today. That's pretty much all I've been doing, and it's almost $1,500 profit now. Excuse me. Again, there's a spot maybe to play there at the value area or at the VWAP, right around the 7.5 quarter number. Again, if we're trying to get long, maybe before that, if we see a short squeeze setting up. But at the moment, I don't see that happening. Let's see what it does at 10 here. Maybe here at 875. VWAP's below us, which is dangerous to try to front run this. Let's see where we can get a fill here. Okay, there's 9.5. Got it. Okay, let's see if that one goes. Sure enough, there's 10.5. Always take 3 ticks if you can get it. 4 is good. Don't hold out for too many. It's like there's a 3 ticker I just took right there. Because 4, holding out to get 4 or 5 or 6 ticks, sometimes you get nothing. So 3 ticks is very profitable in ES. The tick value is high enough to justify it, in other words. Let's try to get long here again. I think we have another short squeeze coming. Maybe. Okay, this time I got 2 at 9.5, trying to add just a little bit to that. Meanwhile, we'll throw targets up. And here it comes. Let's get 3 ticks and 6 ticks. 3 ticks and 5 ticks is what we'll shoot for. 3 and 4. Okay, there's 2. Sweep down. We got another one. Good. Now we can go for a little more aggression here. It's back on the VWAP. That's good. Okay, see, this is what I meant before. You can get off sides unless you're real close to the liquidity, but I think this spot's going to hold. So let's play it. It's bouncing a lot, so I'm going to have to be really aggressive both ways, exiting also. So let's get lined up here to exit. Okay. So I'm long 8.5 with a 10 lot, And I'm going to take profits very fast. As you see, I'm out of half of it already. And now I've got a 3 lot left. Let's protect that 3 lot. And okay, got 3 ticks more on the last 3, so that was fine. Again, today's about tactics. That's the kind of tactics you got to use in ES. NQ, you can play 5, 10 points at a time and play the range. But if you're going to scalp ES, you've got to respect the liquidity and get in front of it enough or get far enough in line where it is that you'll get filled. Otherwise, you can get it perfectly right as far as the price action and not get fills where you need to enter and exit. Okay, we're going into the bottom of the hour. I'm going to cancel these guys and kind of reset my brain. I have my doggo house guests, and they're patiently waiting at the door. Here, I'll show you what they're doing. Well, this was this was a little earlier. Dother wanted to join me in bed, but they were patiently waiting at the door here. There we go. That's what they were doing earlier. So hopefully I closed the door so that they would be good. I think they're still there watching me though. I'm going to look in a minute. So let's see what we get at the bottom of the hour. We'll reset our brain here for another round of events and see if we get some other setups. So far, both these are working well, my ES and my NQ scalps. As I was saying, I was doing a lot more NQ lower down. Now up here in the value area, look at the liquidity on NQ. It's just all over the place. It's a big mess. Whereas look at the liquidity on ES. See how orderly it is? It's forming a nice boundary. You can see really clearly the white. And look at this sloppy mess over here and a little bit clearer in YM, but it's just kind of trading on volume. It's not really going anywhere. And remember, ES is not crunched. NQ is crunched 2 to 1, and it's still hard to read. So if I crunch it like 4 to 1, you could probably really see it. So just to show you the difference, right now, again, it's 2 to 1. Let's crunch it 4 to 1, and then it'll look a little more like ES. You'll see here in a second. See how it's got a little clearer boundaries now, but it's still not thick enough to keep it that crunched and try to trade it. But you can see a little clearer where the boundaries are. So that's why I like it on 2 ticks over there. That makes a real good balance between being able to see the traded volume and the liquidity and being able to enter orders reasonably well and still kind of get a sense where the liquidity is moving around. So, and again, right now I've got YM also on 2 to 1. Sometimes I change that around depending on what it's doing. I'm not trading it today, so YM is my, if we're trending instrument, it's my go-to. But today we've had such good back and forth behavior, intraday swings, in other words, that I really wanted to stay in NQ where it's the most lucrative. And let's put these guys back to spread out a bit, or to crunched a bit, so we can see the context a little better. See what I mean? It's like we've had really good range behavior, and that's you want to play that in NQ. YM looks just the same, and the dollars are always much better in NQ for that kind of movement. And it's easier for me, but the crack-like behavior of NQ, the crystal meth behavior of NQ doesn't bother me. I know a lot of people have trouble trading it and they find it to be really erratic. But once I learned its personality and the price levels it plays around, again, 0, 20 to 30, 50-ish, 70, 80, and then back up to 0, 0 again. Once I got used to that kind of rhythm, um, and got used to letting it, the liquidity kind of tell me where to play and let it come to me, to my orders, NQ got really pleasant to trade after I kind of got the hang of it. And that was good. That's like 15 years ago now that I really yelled into it. In the 90s, I traded mostly ES and sometimes the SP contract, the big S&P 500 contract. In the 2000s, I traded um, mostly YM. I started trading it in 2003 or four, and then I got busy again with NQ and ES around the big recession in 08, 09, and then um, really aggressively traded NQ most of the 2010 to 2020. So again, if you learn its personality, it's a great instrument, but you do have to respect its personality. Bonds are great if you like really slow moving markets. The bonds, a scalp can take a couple of hours, but it's quite predictable. You don't get the sharp, sudden movements unless, there's something going on. But see, for me, again, the sharp, sudden movements are the opportunity. So, I mean, that's why we're in futures. Futures are a leveraged instrument that has two functions. It's either for hedging equities or crops, which is what it was originally invented for, was to hedge crops. And that way, a farmer could get money for his crop before it was harvested, and that way he wouldn't have to outlay so much money and could lock in a price. And that's where futures came from. And when futures started coming along with equities, it was designed again initially as a hedging tool to hedge large equity portfolios, and still is used for that. That's where most of the money in futures comes and goes from. But along the way, smart speculators said, wow, this leverage is great, 1,000 to 1. And it is, it's ridiculously high leverage. So if you can take advantage of that, it's the perfect instrument. It's also a perfect market. The ES trades only on the CME. It doesn't trade anywhere else. The NQ only trades on the CME. So you have perfect information. You're seeing all the volume. There's no other place where people are trading this. They can trade options against it elsewhere. And, artificial instruments like they trade in Europe against the indexes, but there are no multiple markets. And that's the problem with using order flow in equities, is equities trade on lots of different markets. And they often trade off the exchanges as well. Big players will trade with each other without even using the exchange. The dark pools. So anyway, futures are the perfect market if you can respect the leverage that you have. That's the problem most people have. They don't realize that just a couple of micros and a few ticks, you can make a living. They constantly are trying to make too much money instead of just consistently making money small amounts. And then every now and then, you catch a huge winner. That's how most professional traders make money. They consistently do okay with their edge. And then every now and then there's big giant winners. And, if you're lucky, you get more of the big giant winners, and you want to set yourself up to have that happen. But, it's the consistency of the small winners from your edge that you live off of. If you ever went to the floor and watched the locals, they were scalping between the big traders. They are not the big traders, just like we are not the big traders. We are scalping between them. We're getting the table scraps. I like to refer to us as being like remora fish, those fish that attach to the sharks and take the leftovers, like this guy right here. Yeah. That's us. We're the remora fish of the trading world, of the futures market. Whoa, big short squeeze going right now again from 10 to 12. See that? still going, still going. Bid still pushing. They're still pulling the ask. This one could get to 15 real fast. 13. Let's see if it can hold. Again, they end when they end. Let's watch the traded volume here. Still lifting the ask. That's what you want to see. The ask getting raised up as the bid gets refreshed. That's a short squeeze. And right now we're holding here just above 12 and a half. Liquidity's at 15. Here we go. There's 14. There's 14 and a half. See what I mean? This is such a repeatable pattern if you know what you're looking for. And you saw me trade it a minute ago. I just wanted to point it out to you there instead of trading it again. But and remember the sequence, this just happened. We came back here and I'm looking over here at the pushing up an NQ and I was like, wow, that's a short squeeze. So my eye immediately came over to ES where you can see it happening to look to see if there was a place I could join it. And again, right in here, it was joinable around 12. It squirted up to 14 and a half. And now, again, you never know when they're going to end. This should get to 15, which is right there. But, you got to get in it at the right spot when it's getting pushed up clearly or it's pulling back into an area where it's resetting. Let's see if it resets 12 and a half here. Let's watch that. It might be. Okay, it's trying to hold there. It's really playing 10 is what it's doing now. So let's see if we can get a fill at 11 here. That'll be a decent rotation. Okay, I'm long 11 and a quarter, trying to get longer. Now I've got 2 at 11 and a quarter, trying to buy 10.75 and 10. Again, we should just rotate back up here to 12 or so and be able to take that. If we get a short squeeze, even better. There it is. There's the rotation. There's 12. Let's take another one off. Okay, see, again, and now there's 13. I was a little early taking profits, but you know what? You never go broke doing that. So today is about tactics. I'm just showing you good tactics. The strategies, what we were doing last week. There's certain places at the close every day you can just make money. Oh, look at that. It's right on 12 and a half again. Let's see if they can push down to the 10 area again. Because that was clearly, see, we traded right into the liquidity there. The liquidity moved down and some of it traded. So let's try that again. It's still a little too far from the VWAP for me to be comfortable. So I'd rather it was doing this down here somewhere, but it still seems to be tradable. So let's see. NQ made it back to its VWAP. It's smack dab in the middle of the middle. Finally, some clear selling, but I don't see a trade over there right now. It made a big bounce off that low that it was at a while that we were scalping now. So definitely some opportunity there on the right entries. Let's keep an eye on that for another push down, but it's got to push down at least back into the kind of 80 to 20 range to even be interesting. And it's at almost 60 now. So that's unlikely also. Yeah, they do tend to squeeze at the same time. And that's just the nature of the fact that the equity indexes have so many components that are similar now that didn't used to squeeze like that all at once. They used to rotate more, but now big tech is in everything. So at least the Dow, the Nasdaq, and the S&P 500 tend to go together. Boy, that could be it for today. We might be going into settlement here. We still have the 10-minute wiggle. Don't forget, we got a bunch of big numbers coming out. Today is the quietest after the close as far as the numbers. It gets busier, particularly with tech a little bit later in the week. So today we have Sprouts, retail, grocery, Rambus. Yeah, nothing huge. The biggies are Tuesday with AMD, Microsoft, Pinterest, Lemonade, Electronic Arts, and then Wednesday, Meta, Qualcomm, Carvana. Yeah. Then, of course, Thursday, Amazon, Intel, Apple, Coinbase, Roku. Yeah, it's going to be a real busy rest of the week. It's not always. That's a good question, though. This just at the moment is three large players or one player three times. I mean, that's somebody's just putting that pattern up. It's not always that way. Lately, it has been. Um, Sometimes certain large traders will play games like that. Like there's a guy in the UK that likes to put up 666 as a bid or an ask of the volume he lists, and I wouldn't read anything into it. It's just a block of liquidity, and it could be a program trade there. It could be an algorithm. It looks like it's algorithmic the way it's following the inside bid and the ask up and down. You see that? It looks like it's some sort of algorithm. And, notice how it doesn't trade unless we get to an area where there's other liquidity besides that block of three. So, they could be just also trying to show in spoofing a little bit, trying to show like there's support and resistance there, which there really isn't. But some some retail traders think when they see size like that, that means support or resistance. So, some large traders will put that up just to kind of confuse retail, but it could be anything. I wouldn't read too much into it. It's the pattern of the liquidity that matters. How is it following the price around? And where is liquidity ganging up? Like those three are moving in sequence up and down, but like look, there's already liquidity parked at 20, so or at 17 and a half, which is where those three guys are. So if those two kind of come together, we'll create a big giant area of high liquidity, and that's what I'm looking for is when that happens, and those guys may or may not be there. Yeah, they're staying the same number of ticks. And again, that could be the way their algorithm is working. Remember, there are algorithms that will post liquidity as a magnet, and they will trade toward their own liquidity. So I'll post, bids down here like I'm buying, and I will sell down to that to buy, sell to buy. So, it certainly could be that. You're seeing a little bit of that right now on the ask there. There was just a sell to buy push down. Yep, that's correct. It's always about the pattern. Like right now, the liquidity is roughly shifting up. You see, we keep kind of working our way up. That's why I wouldn't play this short. I would be looking for places to get long into the short squeezes, which is what you've seen me doing. But trying to fade this, you're just asking to get run over because, it's got a pretty strong directional bias right now. And remember, direction is the what number most important thing here? It's one of the top ones, isn't it? There's my list. There's my list. Direction is number 2. So right now, it's the most important thing. Time of day is a known factor. No longer, we know the time of day. So 2 and 3 are the biggies right now. So that's why that document will always tell you the answers to your question. It took about 4 years of TRG to develop that document, believe it or not, and make it that simple. And literally, there's nothing that I use that isn't on that piece of paper, that page. But I had all different iterations of my process that I tried to teach people with. And if you go back and look in the pit, you'll see them. And that one finally was the one that encompasses everything. All the other ones got most of it or some of it or pieces of it. And this one has it all. So again, it's literally that simple. Just put those 6 pieces together over and over again. Okay, here comes our 10-minute wiggle. We will wrap up at the top of the hour today. I'm not going to wait for the earnings. There aren't any big ones tomorrow and Wednesday. We might wait and see what kind of earnings we get and what the reactions are. Meanwhile, here's my updated P&L. We've been doing pretty good here. Let's see. I'll drag this over. So what are we at? We're at about 1,300 before commissions. And again, I'm trying to stick. We haven't since we started. I'm trying to stick 10 or less. See, and there's a couple of trades here that get really big with 3-4 micros. There's a 4 lot 167.50. See what I mean? You don't need a lot of contracts. You need to practice being in the right spots. Then the size can be whatever you want it to be, whatever your account justifies. Wow, now we just got really sweepy both ways here in NQ. See, it's going back and forth, and it's not very directional. So that's why coming into the 10-minute wiggle, we want to be very cautious, particularly on Monday, because it's the Ides of Monday, and Mondays are weird. Yeah, funny how they went away right on the 10-minute wiggle. Well, no, they're down here again, but they went away to the ups and now they're back. They just moved around. They're back. Yeah, it's the 10-minute wiggle. That's why. Pretty volatile now, both directions. So it's a sit on your hands moment. YM's almost at the top of its range, though. That's interesting. It's been holding and absorbing up there. I've been watching to see if it can break, maybe, just for fun. Okay, well, let's see if we get a push down to 10 again here that maybe is buyable now. Let's watch that spot right there. So that's into where the liquidity has been parked, and the three guys are further down now. So let's see if I can get a fill right there. Nope. Dang, it came right to me though. I missed by a tick again. Look at that. See? Oh, that's classic. I miss by a tick all the time. It's too funny. It's just that means you're in the right spot, again. Let's see if this rotation down, maybe I can get a fill. Okay, here it comes. See if we can fill down here. I'll front run myself by another tick this time. So I just put an order a tick higher. Now I have three orders there. See if any of them fill, or if I miss by a tick again. No, we got one. See, the one that I front ran filled. The other two didn't. Oh, that's too funny. Okay, let's throw a target up here, and oh, we can get under this one. Nope. Oh well. It's going to go for a target. Then I tried to get under it, and it got hit. So again, that spot right there is the one that filled 10 3/4. Okay, can we get all three of them this time? There's one. Oh, there's two. There's three. Now, can we get these guys down here? Let's see. Okay. I have four of them. I'm going to take profits quickly on the first three, as usual, like that. And let's see if we can get a runner with this last guy, or maybe get another one to add to it down here. Let's see. Okay. Oops, that's a big sweep down. Now we could be off sides. Let's see if the buyers step up here again. Otherwise, I might have gotten caught in a little bit of a downdraft here. Let's see. There's the VWAP. Okay. Okay, here comes an attempt. Nope. Attempted to push up, didn't get anywhere. It's going to try again. Pushing down, watch the bid. There it is again. See if we can get up into my targets. Ooh, wow, big aggressive push down. Let's buy that. Here it comes back into the range. Can we get out with our profits? We'll see in a minute. Boy, really nasty spot. So I'm going to trade this pretty aggressively just for fun. So, whoa, big sweeps down, and I'm not getting out of any of my contracts on the moves up, which is creating more risk here. But I think ultimately I'll be fine. Let's see. Let's keep watching the traded volume. It's selling off pretty aggressively here, maybe in front of earnings. Let's see what happens. There we go. There's the big sweep up we needed. Okay. Boy, that didn't get very far though. Boy, it only covered a couple of my targets. Wow. Okay, so I need to be more aggressive than that on my targets. Now I'm right on those three guys, so I'm a little bit off sides clearly here, but let's see if we can work it. One more good sweep up, but I'm a little too far away. Let's see. There we go. Okay. Yeah, the bottom of value now. I'm off sides here. Zero is probably in play in ES. Watching the tick is kind of negative too, but there's been some good squeezes up, so might be able to rescue this one. Let's see. It's right on value here. Let's take one more there. And one more good short squeeze. I have to be much more aggressive on the profits. It traded up to me and I didn't aggressively get out of them. That's why I'm off sides here. So let's see what we can do at the bottom of value if there's responsive buying. They're trying, but this one's off sides. Yeah, it's probably going to settle somewhere around here. So I'm definitely off sides unless we get another massive short squeeze. So again, if I'm concerned about the account, I would get out of the way. But this is just an eval I bought this morning, like I said. So, and the one I've been trading in NQ over here is a different one. So I'm not trading those profits away. I'm working a second account here. So it's right on value. Come on, you short squeezers, you can do it. I need them to save me pretty much now in this one. So you can see there's zero. Okay. That was the spot to really do this. I should have been more patient waiting for zero on this because you got to do that with ES. I don't think this one's going to recover, but we'll see. Maybe. One good short squeeze would do it, but it's a little wishful thinking here. Here we go. There's a short squeeze. Come on. Again, I got to be really aggressive getting out of this because I didn't last time and it didn't fail because of that. So let's see here. So this is a little more than the 10, but again, I'm just kind of showing you an extreme aggressive example that's clearly offsides here, and this is trading on the wrong side. That needs to be all red, like I was saying earlier. That would indicate buying there, and at the moment, that's not what we're seeing. So it's actually going lower. So we're just completely offsides on this trade. But again, I have a knack of being able to rescue these, so I'm going to kind of try here and see what I can do. This one's pretty far offsides, though. We can get a good short squeeze going. I have a prayer back to the VWAP here. So this is a good example to show you. This is why you scalp for ticks over here. Once you're off sides in ES, unless you get lucky, you're pretty much at the mercy of the liquidity. Here we go. It's trying to bounce, but I'm just way too far off sides, I think, here. Maybe 5 is back in play, so I can minimize the damage. But it's still pushing down. It's still trading on the ask. We need it to trade on the bid, and it's not. So, okay, there's a bit of a short squeeze starting. See if it gets any traction. Maybe. There we go. Okay, can I get out of it this time? Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna have to scale again down here. Now let's try it. Come on. There we go. It's not the Apex feeds are doing much better, but now it's lagging on me here. So okay, there's the bell. Let's see if we get a closing short squeeze. And that'll get me out of this trade if I get lucky. Here it comes. It's not moving orders very quick. Hold on a second, guys. I'm going to pause the share. It's throttling me. I'll put it back on as soon as I can. Just give me a second. We're going into the bell just rang, so we're going into settlement right now. And I might have a prayer of getting out of this here. Okay, let's see. I think my video is working okay now. Let's resume that. Okay, here it comes. You can see I'm not far off now. I've been kind of scaling in and out of it, but I'm still about 2.5 points off sides here. So If we can get just up here to about 6, I can get out with a nice profit. But yeah, there's a squeeze. Come on, baby. You guys can do it. Just to the VWAP. Come on. Let these guys move out of the way. One good sweep up. Here it comes. Okay, let's start selling some here. Okay, let's see. Well, now we're in profit on what's left. That's why we're above the break even. So I might be able to rescue this puppy. Again, I have a knack for being able to do this. I don't recommend you do what I'm doing. I just want to kind of show you if I can do it and get out of this with my ass. I've got 26 micros here, and I'm just slightly off sides. I could take a small loss here, which is what I'd recommend if it was you. But I'm trying to show you an example of how I can kind of sometimes get out of these things just by scaling around my core trade in and out, which is what I've been doing. But I'm running out of time here. And we might get some earnings that totally wreck me or bail me out. We'll see. There's no really big ones after the close, but there's enough that it would move the tape around. So let's put all of those limits right there. How many is that? That's 18 of my 26. We can put a few more here. I don't think it's going to get up there. I think I'm kind of get stuck down here, but we'll see. Oh, and this isn't an apex, so I've got to be done by 10 after, don't I? Okay. Let's see. I might just have to flatten it out if we don't get another push up. What's that? 27. That's one too many. There it is. Yeah, you know what? I'm just going to flatten it out. I have profit in that from earlier also in that one. All right. So that was fun. Again, good example of what not to do. And what I was showing you earlier is the way to trade a ES, MES. And once you get off sides with liquidity between you and your price, you can pretty much write it off. Sometimes you can rescue it like I was just showing you, but I wouldn't recommend that again if you're new. All right, are there any questions or comments? Otherwise, we'll wrap up here. And we still have a nice profit for the day. So again, I'm not disappointed. All right, I will see you guys tomorrow. The normal TRD trading the open is in the morning, and then we'll trade the close again. Lots of stuff happening the rest of this week, earnings, FOMC, NFP. So stay calm, stay frosty. I'll see you guys later.